She had to tell the audience that she tips big because even she knows she sounds insufferable. Hey, I'm an but at least I tip. This dame probably virtue signals on the toilet. But that's not the point here. While everybody else was trying to figure out how to survive as the government told us that breathing in public could kill us, Sunny was lolling around in her big house clicking on pictures of arugula while mixing Cocoa Puffs into her Haagen-Dazs. Oh, the oppression. I wonder if she wiped down the groceries herself or had her maid.
Everyone missed the real story, everyone except Joe Rogan and Greg Gutfeld. While others were dazzled by Sunny Hostin's polished grin and media poise, Rogan and Gutfeld weren't buying the act. They peeled back the primetime polish like a magician exposing the trick behind the illusion. Rogan dropped truth grenades with surgical precision, while Gutfeld laced the air with razor-sharp wit. The result? Sunny's glossy TV charm crumbled into a storm of punchlines. One moment, she's confidently delivering hot takes on The View. The next, she's visibly rattled, as if someone flipped her teleprompter into hieroglyphics. So what exactly did they uncover? Let's just say, the forecast for Sunny suddenly got a lot darker.
They get so much hate watching and hate watching viral clips of them saying ridiculous things. I mean, it is a rabies-infested hen house.
and at the same time, it seemed like the most interesting part was their audience seemed to be on my.
You know, it's almost impressive how Sunny Hostin can consistently land on the most off-base take in any given moment, like she's training for the Olympics of being wrong. If confidently missing the point were a marketable talent, she'd have her own cover story in Forbes by now, clueless yet committed. But here's where it gets wild. In a world overflowing with seasoned experts, cultural scholars, and people who've at least glanced at a headline, Sunny somehow manages to be the loudest voice in the room. While saying the least, it's performance over substance, turned up to 11. Enter Joe Rogan and Greg Gutfeld, two guys who saw her latest reel of televised nonsense and collectively said, nope. They didn't just push back, they cracked the echo chamber wide open.
Hostin's obsession with race gets thrown back in her face. Today's video comes to us from Sunny Hostin. Sounds like a town. We're in Sunny Hostin. She was on PBS's Finding Your Roots, a show dedicated to researching celebrity ancestry. For context, Sunny is a staunch supporter of reparations and has made a fortune spewing nonsense about white privilege and racial justice. Well, turns out she's not as oppressed as she claims she is. She's actually the descendant of slave owners from
Joe Rogan, who's held conversations with everyone from world-class neuroscientists to full-blown flat earthers without once imploding from the IQ whiplash, seemed genuinely baffled that someone like Sunny Hostin could turn being wrong into a daily career highlight. It's like she's mastered the art of confidently missing the mark, all while broadcasting it live. Hostin has this uncanny tendency to speak in unwavering moral absolutes, as if she's perched on a divine mountaintop, handing down stone-carved opinions to the mere mortals below. And Greg Gutfeld? The man could barely contain himself. He looked like a kid on Christmas morning, ready to cannonball straight into the lava pit of her contradictions, grinning as the sanctimony melted away.
I saw you on The View.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's been overwhelming my past couple days.
Yeah, is that annoying?
No.
No?
No, I mean, it's just, when I was on there, I really had no idea how it was going to land with the audience. So I just went in there, did my thing. I had no idea what to expect. I didn't know who Sunny Hostin was. I actually still really don't know. So I wasn't expecting necessarily for her to kind of try to ambush me in that way and attack my character.
Let's step into the Sunny Hostin time warp, a curious alternate reality where logic takes a backseat and contradiction is king. In this strange dimension, interrupting everyone else while claiming to be silenced is hailed as heroism. It's a place where personal responsibility gets rebranded as oppression, and smugness isn't just tolerated, it's practically worn like a crown. According to Sunny's rulebook, if you dare to challenge her logic, you're instantly labeled a bigot, a misogynist, or a shadowy agent of big hatred. Every panel she joins quickly transforms into something less like a debate and more like an avant-garde performance piece, an interpretive dance of indignation dressed up as moral authority.
She took the news. Roll it.
Wow. I'm a little bit in shock. I just always thought of myself as Puerto Rican, you know, half Puerto Rican. I didn't think I was, my family was originally from Spain and slaveholders.
Yeah. So how are you feeling, my friend?
I think it's actually pretty interesting that my husband and I have shared roots.
Yeah.
So I do appreciate that. And I think it's great for our children to know this information. I guess it's a fact.
Joe Rogan called it for what it truly is: weaponized narcissism, wrapped in the shiny packaging of woke commentary. Sunny Hostin, in all her on-air glory, managed to label middle-class Americans as covert oppressors, as if working a 9-to-5 and shopping at Target is somehow part of a sinister agenda. She treats a dinner at Applebee's like it's a microaggression in casserole form. At one point, she even implied rural Americans shouldn't have a say in democracy unless they could pronounce bourgeoisie without choking on their own irony. Rogan didn't have to launch an attack, he simply held up a mirror. And Sunny? She flinched like it was serving her a subpoena with a side of truth.
I guess it's a fact of life that this is how some people made their living, on the backs of others.
Fact of life. Interesting change of tune. For more, we go to our chief Sunny Hostin correspondent for a reaction.
Greg Gutfeld didn't just bring a mirror to the party, he rolled in with a megaphone, a spotlight, and a sarcasm-powered bulldozer. Watching him dismantle Sunny Hostin's contradictions was like peeling back the layers of an onion, only to discover it's made entirely of recycled Twitter outrage and buzzword bingo. Her political analysis carries all the depth of a toddler trying to explain the loud, jumbled, and hilariously off-target. Greg didn't even have to roast her. She essentially lit the match herself and marched into a wind tunnel of brutal truth. One of the most unintentionally hilarious moments. Sunny calling her co-hosts dangerous extremists for suggesting brace yourself basic common sense. That alone could have earned a standing ovation on a comedy special. But the real kicker? Declaring herself a voice for the voiceless while dominating airtime on one of the most watched shows in daytime television. Because apparently, it's really difficult to get your opinions heard when you're paid to shout them before lunchtime. 5 days a week. Meanwhile, Joe Rogan took a different route, his classic slow burn style. He didn't need fireworks, just a subtle head shake, the kind a dad gives when he sees his kid try to microwave a fork. He calmly pointed out the absurdity of someone living in a coastal mansion, jetting around in private planes, while still claiming the mantle of the oppressed. If victimhood were a timeshare, Sunny would be a platinum-tier lifetime member with VIP lounge access.
That show has this very specific ideological bubble in which they operate in. You know, and they always bring on a token conservative woman and they yell over her and silence her. And, you know, they did that with Meghan McCain, and they did that with what is that other blonde woman from Survivor? Do you remember her, Jamie? She was always yelling. I mean, it's a bizarre.
Greg Gutfeld, on the other hand, didn't just critique Sunny Hostin, he performed a full-blown surgical dissection of her so-called logic, if you can even call it that without insulting logic itself. With clinical precision and comedic flair, he laid out the greatest hits from her highlight reel of unintentional absurdity. Case in point, the time she earnestly argued that certain opinions shouldn't be given a platform, while literally using her own massive platform to declare it. That's like denouncing fast food while double-fisting Big Macs during a press conference. Gutfeld didn't hold back, he delivered the full roast treatment. brisket style, slow, deliberate, and sizzling with sarcasm. Sunny's worldview, such as it is, resembles a broken GPS that keeps rerouting straight toward the cliffs of insanity. In her narrative, every topic is a crisis, every dissenting voice a threat, and miraculously she is always the cure. Let's not forget the moment she claimed basic math was problematic because it didn't account for lived experiences. Yes, really, she essentially tried to cancel arithmetic. Rogan nearly choked with laughter when someone brought that up on his podcast. His deadpan response? If math is now about feelings, then 2 + 2 = my truth, and gravity should probably issue an apology. What makes Rogan's critiques hit so hard is his delivery. No shouting, no insults, just slow, deliberate repetition of her own statements like he's trying to explain quantum mechanics to a turtle. And somehow, that lands harder than any verbal smackdown. Meanwhile, Gutfeld was already off and running, marveling at Sunny's uncanny talent for transforming any cultural topic into a pretzel of contradictions. She can take a discussion on school lunches and twist it into an indictment of systemic oppression. As Greg put it, it's like watching someone try to defuse a bomb using a blender, loud, chaotic, and somehow ending with everyone either crying or wondering if it was all just performance art.
It's time for
living your life and you're feeling low. You don't know what is true. You don't know what's true. So you quick flip through the channels to watch Sunny on The View. Oh my God, the stuff she says is dumb. Where the hell they get this woman from? She's a host who's always crass and lame, with lots of nonsense to proclaim. If you want a show where people know the host is stupider than you, then set your DVR to watch Sunny Hostin on The View.
nicely done.
Then there's the classic Sunny Hostin humblebrag, the kind that feels less relatable woman of the people and more like a TED Talk from someone who accidentally joined the wrong panel. She lectures the country on inequality, systemic injustice, and everyday struggle, all while casually name-dropping her Ivy League degree and referencing the stress of choosing between vacation homes. According to her, she's just like us if us involves custom oat milk lattes, luxury wellness retreats, and tweeting about injustice while reclining on the deck of a yacht. Greg Gutfeld saw this contradiction and did what only Gutfeld can: turned it into a full-scale production. He even gave it a working title, The Privileged Prophet, a sunny tale complete with imaginary musical numbers, designer hypocrisy, and background dancers in Birkenstocks. Rogan, as always, took the subtle approach. He compared her to a fortune cookie rewritten by Tumblr, vague, self-righteous, and utterly allergic to nuance. But Gutfeld wasn't finished. He spotlighted the irony of Hostin condemning misinformation while being a walking, talking Wikipedia of misquoted outrage. She's the type who skims a headline, misremembers it, and then shouts it from the rooftops as sacred truth, accusing anyone who questions her of not doing the research. Greg likened it to showing up at a symphony with a kazoo, blowing into it confidently, and insisting your first chair violin. And when Sunny declared that people who disagree with her don't understand the lived Black experience, Rogan, who's hosted more Black scholars, artists, and thinkers than Sunny has referenced in her entire career, simply blinked. The level of unearned moral altitude was so high, you'd think NASA was tracking it like space debris.
Very strange show, but it's fun to watch. It's just fun to watch them.
It's good entertainment.
Yeah.
Undoubtedly.
Well, they're just, it's interesting because I think Sunny is very intelligent, but she's ideologically captured.
Right.
It's sort of, I think the other ones, there's a couple of the other ones don't have to name any names, are just very dull-minded. But I think Sunny's not one of them. I think she's smart but captured.
Sure, I think she came into it with an agenda.
Of course. They do everything with an agenda.
Yeah.
Greg said it best. Sunny Hostin doesn't seem to want equality, she wants immunity. Immunity from criticism, from debate, from the natural consequences that come with saying things on national television. She wants to play a game where she writes the rules, rewrites them mid-play, and then cries racism the moment anyone dares to read them aloud. It's like playing Monopoly with a toddler who keeps eating the money and sobbing when you ask for rent. Sunny treats every panel like her personal courtroom. She's the judge, the jury, and the only person allowed to speak. Rogan compared debating her to trying to teach a cat to juggle. Messy, chaotic, and guaranteed to leave you with scratches. Then there's the full-blown victim cosplay and emotional red carpet moment she rolls out anytime someone pushes back. In her world, disagreement is an attack, curiosity is violence, and sarcasm, practically a war crime. Gutfeld roasted this with such intensity it could have doubled as a bonfire. He described her as the human embodiment of a fire alarm that only goes off when someone uses logic. Rogan, with his signature laid-back but lethal delivery, pointed out that in Sunny's perfect world, podcasts would be outlawed, books would come with trigger warnings and footnotes from a day committee, and dinner conversations would require both a fact-checker and a trauma-informed therapist. As he put it, in Sunny's world, intellectual diversity is dangerous, but echo chambers are safe spaces. And it's not just politics. Sunny's hot takes extend into science too. This is the same woman who once suggested that biology might need re-evaluation because, apparently, the emotional impact of facts wasn't being considered. Gutfeld had a field day with that one, calling it the academic equivalent of eating crayons and then blaming the menu.
Oh, I'm gonna milk this till the end of time. You're right. Anytime she says something stupid, I'm gonna go, slave owner! Exactly, because if she is shaming descendants of this, will she continue to do that when she is now one of them? And it is funny. She is so wrapped up in identity, and she had no idea who she was.
In what universe does someone believe you can challenge science by tweeting about your feelings? Sunny Hostin's apparently. In her world, emotional anecdotes trump data, and asking for a source is a microaggression worthy of a full-blown credibility takedown. Question her facts, and suddenly you're tone policing. Disagree, and you're oppressing. Gutfeld joked that her next book should be called Gaslight, the memoir complete with a foreword written entirely in all caps and footnotes from her own Twitter feed. Rogan's final roast was simple but brutal. Sunny isn't having conversations, she's staging ideological hostage negotiations. Disagree, and you're evil. Ask a question, and you're cancelled. Crack a joke, and suddenly you're a threat to democracy. It's a climate so sterile even bacteria would be offended. Sunny Hostin's legacy on television likely won't be remembered for wisdom or eloquence, but for the impressive catalog of unintentional comedy produced while earnestly trying to sound profound. Joe Rogan and Greg Gutfeld didn't shout her down. They simply held up the mirror. And what stared back wasn't a fearless truth-teller, it was a tangle of contradictions wrapped in righteous indignation and hoping no one would notice the hypocrisy trailing behind like toilet paper on a shoe. They didn't just dismantle Sunny Hostin, they audited her worldview. They exposed the bounce checks of logic, repossessed the moral high ground, and left behind a montage of viral sound bites soaked in contradiction. And they did it all with smirks and sarcasm. Because sometimes, when the absurdity is this loud, the only fitting response is to laugh it into oblivion. Final score? 2 podcast mix, 1 Fox News coffee mug, and a sunny disposition officially flipped into permanent shade.
People have to wonder, where does Sunny Hostin get her opinions? Yeah. Like you said, it's obviously from her husband. She has to tell her what to say on The View, because without it, she's got nothing up there. She's not very bright. But the problem with her is that she went full racist. She injected skin color into a fairly generic behavior seen in all spouses, regardless of skin color. People marry, they listen to each other, they have something in common with them, they share their political views. She just didn't want to upset her husband by saying her husband makes her do everything, and then she'd have to accuse him of being a racist. Because if he told her that this is what white women do, then he's a racist.
She'll scold you for your tone, then come back swinging with the emotional equivalent of a wrecking ball wrapped in smugness. It's the kind of rhetorical whiplash that makes you wonder if she's handing out critiques or delivering a monologue. At an awards show, Gutfeld nailed it when he said Sunny Hostin is the only person who can make Sunshine feel passive-aggressive, like a glare trying to pass for a compliment. But their takedown wasn't personal, it was architectural. Rogan and Gutfeld didn't attack her. They deconstructed the shaky scaffolding of her ideology, beam by flimsy beam. When someone builds their credibility on buzzwords, outrage, and emotional theater, it doesn't take a wrecking crew to bring it down. A breeze of common sense will do the job just fine. Sunny's arguments don't explode under pressure, they vanish the moment you ask a real question. Rogan and Gutfeld didn't need rage or ridicule. They used something far more potent: clarity. And in Sunny's carefully constructed echo chamber, that's the one thing she's never prepared for.